Let me hold on. I might get over
Hey,
you a second.
everybody. This is Laura Whitmore with the Women's International Music Network and the She Rocks Awards. And I'm super psyched tonight to be sharing my virtual space with four fantastic women in music. We're going to be talking about them and their careers, but also focusing on the idea of visibility. How do you get what you're doing out there into the world? How do you create traction? How do you make a dent in the chatter going on in the universe? So I think what I'd like to do is just start off by having everybody on the panel introduce themselves and share a little bit about what they're doing now, maybe about their past a little bit and what they're doing now. So I'm going to start with Katie.
Oh, come on. Come on. Easy target. Hey, everyone. I am Katie Daryl. I work over at Access TV, formerly known as HDNet, which was the world's first high definition TV network back in the day. Mark Cuban started it. And now we are under the guidance of Anthem Sports and Entertainment. And I work in the music department. I interview rock stars for a living, which is totally rad. But I'm also an executive producer. So I'm on camera and behind camera. And I do a variety of different programs for the network, both digitally and in the linear on the actual broadcast TV channel. And yeah, I make TV, interview rock stars, come up with great ideas, and I'm always brainstorming. And then I'm always pitching other people and trying to get things out of them to make our shows better. So I'm working both sides. I can sell magic beans to anyone, though, is my theory.
That sounds like a really terrible, boring job that you have there, Katie.
It is. I'm very lucky. It's the days that I complain and, which we all do, even, when you have the best job, but it's easy to remind myself I'm not digging ditches and there's 1,001 people waiting in line behind me to take my job. So it's pretty good.
Sounds awesome. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. Yeah. No, happy to be here.
I'm gonna go to Sarah. I saw her coughing before, so
Hey guys, how's
I
it
think
going?
she's okay now.
How's it going? So my name is Sarah Command. I sing in a band called the Command Sisters. We're signed to Universal and Republic Records. I also run my own marketing agency. I represent a variety of agencies, Shark Tank funded companies. I work in e-commerce, tech, etc. Recently, Major League Sports, Toronto Arrows. Woohoo. Yeah, so a lot of my experience in a variety of industries: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc. And music and in e-commerce and all those fun things. And I apologize, I'm also deathly ill. So this is the first time I put on makeup in 4 or 5 days. So if I can't speak properly, that's why. But I'm here for the ride and honored to be a part of this panel. So thank you, Laura,
Thank
for having
you.
me
Thanks.
on.
You sound pretty good to me. And I have to just add that Sarah is like a master of visibility. So I'm really glad that even though you are not feeling 100%, that you jumped on
I'm
with us
honored,
today.
and I will say before I shut up that Laura awarded me the She Rocks Award, Next Generation Award in 2017, and that was truly really took off my career, both in my music industry as well as in my marketing career. So thank you, Laura. It's the best
Yeah.
at visibility for women and women in business, starting from the ground up, and not just people that were given the opportunity, but people that need to be given an opportunity. So thank you, Laura, for that. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad to hear that. Awesome. Myki, why don't you share a bit about who you are?
Oh, now it's my turn. Hello, everybody. My name is Myki Angeline. I currently work at Odyssey in Sacramento, California for 98 Rock, and I'm starting to transition into podcast producing. I've worked in the music industry since 2007. I also work with the Women's International Music Network, and like Sarah mentioned, because of Laura taking a chance on me, because I've been with the women since 2015, 14, it's opened doors for me. And now I'm working, all of my income has to do with music industry and speaking on panels like this one. I also volunteer with the Girls Rock Sacramento camp here, teaching self-defense to the girls and utilizing my time. I recently got added to the board, so I'm on the board now as well. And I'm a vegan and I'm queer and I'm here to answer your questions.
Awesome. Thank you. And Myki is great. And Myki has like also a great radio voice. She does she did the voiceovers for all of our like, pre-award video packages and everything. She's so great. So thank you for joining us, Myki. Nicole, last but certainly not
Sure.
least,
Hi.
a true
My
professional in the visibility field, I have to say.
Well, I'm glad you think so. That means a lot coming from you. My name is Nicole Poulos. I am the founder and CEO of a creative communications agency called Sideways. We are headquartered in Los Angeles with an office in Nashville. We work primarily with musicians and music brands, and so I have the distinct privilege of working with creative people and helping them tell their stories on a daily basis. I've been in music since 2004. I started and came from the label world and am an accidental entrepreneur. Became an accidental entrepreneur a little over 10 years ago. And I've also had the privilege of having some incredible women be a part of the SheRocks Awards. So I'm really thrilled to be here and be a part of this. So thank you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us. I don't think it was an accident. I think the universe pushed you in the right direction. Why don't we also share a little bit about maybe what are you focusing on right now? What do you see as a trend or what's happening in like your area of the industry? And Nicole, since we just spoke, why don't you kind of start with that? Are there some things that people should know about what's happening in your world?
So I mean, Sideways was kind of started with kind of the impetus that social media and press are really kind of all in the same world. Are all part of public relations. Years ago, when I first started in music, those two areas were really siloed in terms of what digital marketing meant and what PR was. And my kind of thinking with that, I came from the digital side of that, and the idea was like, hey, eventually an artist is going to have, more followers and more impressions than any media outlet could possibly give. So, we kind of started the company to be a hybrid of both of that is really important for those kind of two sides to be talking and for all to be, kind of part of the strategy. And, and that's kind of really what we're living in today of, what you're doing, kind of in for the earned media landscape and working with media outlets like an Access TV, is, as important as your visibility on TikTok or Instagram and what you're putting out there, in the public. I had a really incredible, a mentor tell me, years ago, it's like, you never want to say something in you never want to, say something in public that you don't want put in a newspaper. And it's kind of the way I view social media of, it's like no one would ever want to say something on, one of Katie's shows that that they wouldn't want, seen on Twitter or TikTok. It's all kind of really the same thing. And I think that really thinking about kind of that full circle in terms of visibility and everywhere that you are visible is really, really important for there to be cohesion through all those platforms.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how I've been a publicist in my career as well, and just the lines are so blurred now between we're gonna dig into this a lot more later on, but just the sense of used to be you could be like, oh, I'm just gonna send this news release out to this magazine and they'll run my news, and now there's so many options, there's so many things that work hand in hand with each other. It's a whole different ballgame.
And even in the business of and I know that there's, they're creating content that will make news, as kind of creating things in that space that will be newsworthy. And that's, something that nobody talked about 10 years ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's definitely been a shift there. Sarah, why don't you jump in and share a little bit about, I know you sort of walk both sides of the street there.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, especially I think especially for higher ad spends and bigger agencies and bigger budgets. I mean, relatability. I think people coming out of the pandemic, they want to see things that they can relate to. I think the glossy image before that maybe people saw the 90s, the 2000s, that was all the picture perfect, this and that. It's what we're seeing relate the most is what people want to see, which is themselves and whatever they're relating to. So at least on my side of things, whether that's in e-commerce, music, etc., I think having some sort of relatability aspect to it is huge. And I love that too, because I love working on things that I feel confident that align with my morals and values, etc. So the fact that is responding to ads and sales, that's awesome. I'm a huge advocate for that. And I think that can span in all industries. I mean, whether it be sports, e-commerce, tech, music, if people can feel something from it and it doesn't feel forced, then I mean that's awesome. So I especially coming out of the pandemic, it was the first experience universally. We're all going through the same thing at one time. There wasn't a certain income class or a certain political, sector that didn't go through it. So we all went through the same thing. I think we're all coming out of that stronger and understanding a little bit more. And we just want to feel something kind of relatable, So at least that's what I took away lately. And then TikTok. Yeah. I think TikTok wins and Reels win. But we're seeing that in ads on Facebook, YouTube, wherever. So that kind of content kind of transfers to wherever. But yeah. No,
Interesting. I just want to ask you, because I mean, I understand from the business side you thinking about that, but also as an artist, I think you guys are just so good at creating these little snippets of content that are relatable, that show vulnerability in yourself as people, and everybody doesn't always have to see the pretty picture, right?
Yeah.
How do you make that work? Like, are you just so comfortable in yourself that you can just be like,
Well, it's interesting because day to day when I'm working with like more high profile clients, like that's always pre-planned because they're often so busy. Like, how do you plan an authentic moment? But for our own stuff, I mean, I tell people like the stuff that's ever really done well for us, like as far as numbers goes, has always been unplanned, extremely authentic, and came from the heart. And that's taught me a lot about marketing. If anything's ever too faked, I mean, it can do well, but it's not. Yeah. But yeah, no, really all of it, anything you see that probably seems like it's probably authentic and randomly put up, it probably was randomly put up and authentic, which is kind of a good marketing lessons for me because, sometimes you don't always have the time to do that or it doesn't always happen, so.
I think it's funny too. Like you can spend like this huge budget making something really slick, and then it's like the thing that you shot with your phone that really ends up resonating.
Well, stop bragging about it, but I had it happen recently with the client. They had some crazy ad spend on a hero campaign, and then we had done a UGC style iPhone video, and I chopped it up, and that one performed 10 times in sales than the very expensive video campaign, and that to me was a really good example of people just want to feel connected. Like they want to feel like, no, but exactly what you said, that kind of, but thank you. That's a very nice compliment. And that stuff was very in the moment. My sister's crazy like that. She never posts on social. She does something in 2 minutes and it does well. And it's just because it's real, So.
She just likes to post hamster,
hamsters.
And very fancy hamster photos. Myki, what are you seeing going on in your neck of the world?
In my neck of the world, when I started with Odyssey, it was a little over a year ago. So I came in at the thick of the pandemic, and I discovered that surprisingly for me, I didn't realize radio is still a really big deal, even with streaming. People can stream the stations. A lot of people, it's because their day-to-day routines, especially like our morning shows, hit a lot with parents that are dropping off their kids at school or whatnot. People coming home from work, and they can, if they're stuck in traffic, they're listening to their favorite afternoon drive show, and it's always catered to the demographic of the city. And when that went away, it really hit people here. So, backing on what Sarah was saying, you as the artist, for those that are listening, they're wondering about with their art, people like to be related to, like Sarah said. So even not just in your music, but who you are as the artist. And everyone has a cell phone and everyone is on it. Create your content, do it like Sarah said. I think podcasts, of course, too. Podcasts took off crazy. So as an artist, you could if you're either wanting to do your own podcast or finding a way to get your music onto podcasts or that sort of thing, because that, like I said, I'm transitioning into producing podcasts with Odyssey, because I think that's the next big thing as well. So
I think it's already here.
As far as, you think everyone has one, they still don't. I mean, it's
yeah.
crazy the backup log of clients we have waiting to have their work done, and it's everything from a local to a huge corporate brand, and yet radio is still here and is still relevant as ever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you see, like, is there a way for unsigned musicians to break into radio? Like, do you know anything about that side of that?
I do, and it's going to depend on a few things. Number one, you want representation. End of story. Your bigger radio stations are not going to pay attention to you unless you have some sort of representation. They're not going to take you serious. They're not going to take the time, right? Even though you have to build on all these follows and these streams, which a lot of labels look for when they're even taking on an artist to get your music heard, you also want someone representing you because every market has their own demographic. They're doing tests all the time to hear what the demographic of their city, of their county, age group, gender, genre. So you might, even in your own hometown, maybe your genre doesn't fit on some of the radio stations you like. That's what you need the representation for. That whoever you sign to, they're already going to have that information. They're going to have relationships already with companies like Odyssey, like Access, like iHeart. They're going to know already from the get, all right, this is your style. Okay, look, we're going to tweak a little bit because if you want to be on radio and you want to have a bigger scope, we're going to tweak it to a certain way because these certain markets, these are the ones that are getting the most. That's going to get you the revenue. That's going to get you the money. That's going to get you, the exposure. That's
Yeah.
going to get you the shows,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. That's the biggest recommendation I can give is get yourself representation. Yeah.
I think it's interesting too. Like, I mean, I'm hardly ever in the car anymore, but I'll stream radio on my computer while I'm
Yeah.
working because
You can
why
stream it on
not?
your TV. I stream it on my TV all the time.
Yeah.
Everything's smart, right?
Everything's smart. Yeah. Katie, what's happening in your world?
With the pandemic, we did the same pivot that everyone's already kind of touched on. And one thing that we realized is obviously we have so much more accessibility to artists, and not just the big names, but the little names and the up and comers. And we're really tapping into that market now because of the pandemic. Like the silver lining of Zoom, so big, you guys. I mean, truly, back in the day when we would have to wait to get an artist interview because they were in a green room in town or doing a junket, but now you can literally just get a Zoom with Steve Stevens from, Billy Idol's band. I worked with Nicole just the other day on that. Every week we're interviewing and talking to so many artists, from the big names to, like I said, the up and comings. And it's all because of like Zoom and the pandemic. And this pivot that we did and that we all resisted and we absolutely hated has now become my most favorite thing, because the joke of literally working in your pajama pants is so true right now. Pajama pants down here, guys.
Hilarious.
Pajama pants. And I love it. I love doing the Zoom thing. And so it's just interesting that, we have so much more accessibility to the artists because of this type of platform. But also what Sarah was saying is it became this moment in this time where everyone was willing to show the unshiny and just be like, yeah, I'm at home and I'm freaking out too, man. Are you at home freaking out? And now everyone's kind of dropped their guard down and been a lot more relaxed and cool. And I think it's just this whole new arena for everyone to play in when it comes to dealing with musicians and artists and, clients, of just being like, we all can't take ourselves so seriously. We're going to jump on a Zoom. We're not going to have our makeup on. And like a 5-year-old's going to run in the background, and that's okay, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm totally with you there. I do think though that it's harder to network now when we're not in person. I think that's tricky.
Yeah, it is tricky, but I gotta tell you, I as much as I seem like an outgoing person, I hate going to a cocktail party and having to introduce myself to a stranger and like the small talk and everything. So I've thrived in this, time because, I'm like, we're all hiding behind emails, and I'm really good at hiding behind emails.
Yeah, you're like, I can send an
mean,
email, set up an interview, talk on Zoom.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know. For some of us, it's really been great.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, I always use, like, I don't know, trade shows, panels, even like this one, as like my secret weapon to meet people that I want to meet.
Yeah.
You go see a panel, you walk up afterwards, you say hello, you chat for a minute. So I have found it to be great for for what you said, Katie. When we did the She Rocks Awards last year, it was all virtual. We were able to get people from all over the world to be a part of it, like um, the Go-Go's. Like some of them were in like where I forget where she was, Singapore or something.
She was in
Um,
Thailand.
Thailand, yeah.
Yeah, Belinda was.
So it definitely opens up so all those possibilities, but then it also limits your world in different ways, I think. I want to talk a little bit more about this idea of authenticity because I think when we think about visibility, we don't always think about authenticity and what that means. And I think, I'm also a senior vice president of marketing for a brand called Positive Grid. We're like a super, digital direct to consumer brand. And it can be a challenge to figure out how to be authentic. Like, what does that mean to me as a brand to be authentic? How do I get that message out? How do I get other people to tell my message for me and still be authentic and still tap into emotion or desire or whatever it is? Do you guys have any thoughts about this idea of authenticity?
I
Anybody?
think it's tapping into the consumer's headspace. But a lot of it's psychological. I mean, I do a lot of study on like psychology, but I feel like I can't ever really speak on something. Well, I say this now, I can't speak on something I don't relate to, but I do work in a lot of fields that I don't personally work in. But then it's like, how do you understand emotionally what that consumer wants, what they can relate to? And a lot of it has to do with psychology, but I think a lot of us feel the same emotions day to day. We can all relate to things in a variety of different ways. What do people like to see? And yeah, kind of what we were touching on before about how everybody just wants to feel connected in some way. They want to feel their soul lit up because we've been so deprived for so long, being locked down for so long. People see something that they can feel something from. And sometimes it's just a 15-second TikTok. That's it. And it just captures people. And like, it just makes people feel something. It is interesting how that time frame has changed though. Nowadays you can really capture a lot of people in a much shorter period of time, which I find exciting because in the past it was much harder. But yeah, I don't know. That's my rant. I'd love to hear everybody else's opinion.
I think a big thing to keep in mind for authenticity is that consumers and fans are really smart. We're on our phones like all day. We're all just inundated with ads and people trying to sell us things and get us to swipe up and get us to swipe up and click through. That I always think about like, and whether this is with a brand or with an artist of how do you want people to feel after, like, how do you want people to feel like listening to this song? Like, what kind of emotions are you trying to elicit? And the kind of the same thing for a brand is like, of course we want people to buy, but like, what's like the kind of feeling behind this and how do we want them to feel? And I think that then that from that, all the, kind of the content and all the marketing stuff extends from there. Instead of like what are people looking for and like what's popular is really, how do we want them to feel? And that's kind of, really where I think the authenticity starts. Cause yeah, people are really smart. They know when they're being sold something.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything to add? No? Okay. I've been thinking a lot too about the idea of your brand as an artist, your brand as a product, as a person. And I think, sometimes we try to tell like the whole story about ourselves, or maybe we don't even know what our story is when really, if you can get somebody to walk away thinking about like one simple idea, that one thing that you just want them to remember about you, your music, your product, whatever, then you'll kind of have one because you've like nickeled your way into their brain. So I don't know. Can any of you guys think a little bit about like this idea of having a brand, having a story, understanding what your hook is, or what makes you different, or what the thing is that you want people to like walk away remembering about you?
What Nicole said, exactly. People can kind of see when something's fake. Kind of we're talking about being authentic and people seeing through that nowadays. A lot of the brands that I work with or with my own personal brand, it's like, who are you authentically? What got you opportunity authentically? What do people notice about you? And then really simplifying it. I think sometimes people try to be too many things. right out the gate. And what's worked for me, at least, or what's worked for my brands, is like knowing the 3 or 4 really powerful things about you and your brand and sticking to those 3 or 4 things.
Mhm.
Obviously, you can expand, but as far as the visual brand and the marketing and whether it be the niches and the TikTok hashtags, et cetera, it does help to kind of narrow down those few important things.
Mhm.
But maybe,
Yeah.
I actually
Katie,
have a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Sorry. I just had a question for people that are like public personas, like Katie and Sarah. Of that sounds like, to me, that also sounds so tiring to have to keep that kind of up all of the time. So I'm kind of curious. Do you hesitate before you like tweet, or kind of what is kind of the process for that, because you're public, you have public personas. So I'm just curious how you guys
it can be very broad.
handle that.
Be very broad. Maybe your personas that you're bold and you're confident and you're queer and you're fantastic and you're outrageous. I don't know. Like, I don't think there's any way to really like narrow down that persona. If you feel like being bold and being queer and fabulous is you, that isn't limiting. I think sometimes it can be kind of broad, but it's not like, oh, I only wear, turquoise on Tuesdays,
Although I will say, you'll rarely see me without my hair down in the curls. Like, that's my jam. This is what I got going for me. If nothing else, I got good hair.
You are. That's your brand.
It is. Like, it's so funny. Like, back in the day, I mean, people are like, do you ever straighten it? And I think it's truly been at least 6 or 7 years since I straightened my hair. I mean, my husband's always like, don't do that. Like, it's unsettling. I just don't know who you are. And I'm like, really? That's the thing. I'm the pizza delivery girl. Come on. Too much information. But yeah, stick with it. Some things like people know are their thing, so.
Yeah, I was curious, like you interview a lot of people. Like, do you find that most people that you talk to like really can hone in on that thing about themselves, or is it an elusive, like?
You know what my goal typically is when I'm doing interviews and everything is to almost, and not in a bad, like weird way. I want to throw someone off of that. I want to turn them a little bit so that they fall off brand a little bit. I want to crack the nut. And so I'm not looking to, I gotcha, or screw someone over by making them say something that's going to potentially go viral and like ruin their career. But, basically it's the old fashioned idea of, getting someone to let their guard down and trust you so that they don't have to feel like they're staying on brand. They can be natural and bring their authentic self to the table, which sometimes may not be fully on brand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like and it's so weird to say this, but because he's a very polarizing figure. I interviewed Ted Nugent the other day, and what anyone's opinions are, whatever. But like in talking with him, everyone knows, oh, he's this very political guy, and he's hunting, and he's got guns and bows and arrows. But in our conversation, it got so loose and fluid that like Ted Nugent used the word cute, and you're just like, Ted Nugent like uses the word cute, and that is cute. And
That's your pull quote from the interview.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, but it was nice. It felt comfortable, and I think it made the audience feel that the conversation truly was authentic because everyone was just being cool, man.
Yeah, yeah. I think too, when I think about like this concept of visibility, this is something that I think about all the time, is this idea of momentum. Like, how do you start to build momentum, and then how do you maintain momentum, which I think is even harder, right? Because you come out with new music, you are like, there's natural momentum to that because like, oh, something new. But then, sort of building something from that, I think is really tricky. Do you guys have any thoughts on that idea? I know you do, Nicole.
That's the
Yes, sure. But I'm like, I've been talking a lot, so I want to give the people a chance to talk. I think it's one of the other things that we talk about here, and we talk about with a lot of the talent we work with, is like, when you kind of capture lightning in a bottle, like when you have those, big, when you have those big moments, like you have a song in a Super Bowl, have a song in a Super Bowl ad, you get booked on like late night TV. It's kind of, you've got this, but it's like, what do you do, after that to capitalize on it? And it's really, kind of hitting like hitting all of the bases with, with shows, bugging your agent about getting shows, bugging your publicist to get more coverage, from this piece, like sharing this on socials, running, working with someone like Sarah to run ads, and really kind of taking and capitalizing on all of that. And, I think too, with a lot of this, and I know a lot of artists have talked about this, and Katie's probably heard this, you have this one big hit song, and so your career goes like this. It's almost impossible for it to kind of stay at that peak, but the idea is that, okay, this is up, we started way down here, we went here, but we're going to maintain, here at a much kind of higher level than we started at. And again, too, it's a lot of work, I mean, people think that when you get to be a rock star, like that's when like everything's easy and everything just happens for you. But that's actually when the real work, that's when like the really hard work starts. It's, if you look at a schedule, from, A-list artists, like a lot of, artists that Katie interviews, it's like when they're in an album cycle, you're up in the morning, you're doing, morning radio, then you're going to go do meet and greets during the day, then you're going to go to sound check, then you're going to go like do more meet and greets, then you're going to play the show, and then you go home and go to bed, rinse and repeat. And it's a lot. It's really like, it's a lot of work being on that level and maintaining that level. And I think, sometimes that's a myth for a lot of like up and coming artists, like something that they think it gets easier as you get bigger. And of course, having no, it's hard. I mean, it gets harder. You have the means to hire, the team to help you. But in terms of the level of work, like, if you want to be a Taylor Swift like level artist, you want to be a Billie Eilish level artist, you really need to be willing to put in a lot of work and also make a lot of sacrifices, because there's, a lot of things, especially I think on like the life and the personal side, that are going to be on the back burner. So, I mean, sacrifice and hard work, I guess, are really the answers to that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think, I guess you have to think about it as part of your job, right? Like, it's not just about making music or making a product, like putting it in front of people and creating that momentum is part of
I've
your
been
job
on
too.
both like the indie artists and major label side of things, and in my opinion, it's equally as much work on a major label. I mean, I'm not as famous as Taylor Swift, so I can't argue to that level of degree, or Billie Eilish. But from what I see from my indie artist friends that have hundreds of thousands of followers that are still indie artists, I mean, their financial commitment per month and time commitment is, I mean, they get maybe 1 hour of sleep. Like, they're the high peak entrepreneurs that work so much. It's so much work, but I think once you get on a major label, it's shifting. How do you continue that momentum with your team? How do you motivate your publicist? How do you
but it's still,
how do you motivate your manager? How do you motivate your agent? How do you make sure your team is pushing you out the right way? I find it kind of the priority shift when you go from indie artists to major label artists is figuring out how to motivate your internal team and then your fans to continue supporting you. How do you continue that momentum as on a major label is kind of different than how you continue the momentum as an indie. There are a lot of overlapping similarities nowadays, but a lot of it's kind of team management for sure.
Yeah, interesting. I was thinking, like, as you were speaking, it reminded me of did you guys read that book that Amanda Palmer wrote about, when she did the Kickstarter campaign and became like the first $1 million artist to fund Kickstarter, but to fund through Kickstarter. But the thing that was really interesting about it was so focused on her community and how she nurtured and trusted and grew her community to the point that it was just an integral part of who she is as an artist. And I wonder if you guys have any thoughts about like community, tapping into your community, building your community. I know, Myki, you've got to have some thoughts about community because you are out there in the world working with a lot of communities.
Yeah, and listening to everyone and all of your valuable intrinsic diamonds, something also to mention, because when you're building your brand as an artist, you have to understand that taking care of yourself is first and foremost, because we, talk about mental health, we talk about health in general. And you have to ask yourself, how far are you willing to go? Because at some point in the beginning, you're chasing the dream, you're chasing the dream. The goal is to get to where the dream is now chasing you. Now everyone's coming to you. Now you get to pick and choose and knock away and go yes to this, no to 5 of those, and yes to that. And before you get to that point, you may even change, you may discover you change who you are. And that in effect can change your brand, right? And knowing what to put out there. We mentioned this earlier. I believe, I mean, I'm nowhere near famous, but I've always protected who I am personally versus the brand I put forth because I want to be able to keep that. And that's my sanity and that's my home. And part of that is community. Because as we working with you, Laura, working with you, Sarah, the Women's International Music Network, we know what a beast the industry is and how hard it is for women to get anywhere still to this day. And when you can find that community you can work with, which is the women, I mean, a group of women killing it every day that I can trust. I would like trust with my kid. I would trust with my car. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. And when you can build it from community, not only do they have your back, they're your biggest cheerleaders. They can direct you to the right way. They can let you know, hey, I'm gonna call check on you because you're getting a little Kanye over here. I need to pull that back because that's not who you are. Right? Let's be real, because if we're speaking mainly to women, I mean, anyone can be listening to this, but for women, there's so much more of a scope on picking us apart at what we do. And we have to build that foundation first and stay strong from within. So as we get older and we get further into this, we don't lose ourselves. We don't lose ourselves to suicidal attempts or drugs or the wrong people. And I'm just, keeping it real. And so
Mhm.
you can keep that, your health going and your community strong. There's nothing you can't accomplish, even if it means you have to walk away from the big light to focus a little bit on the indie and never come back or come back bigger than ever. As long as you're the one making the shots and you feel good about yourself and every day that you wake up, you want more, that's what matters.
Yeah. I think it sort of taps into like the authenticity piece of it too. Like if you authentically are communicating with your community, and I think of community like, I don't know, when I think about it, I'm always thinking about giving back. I'm always
Yes.
thinking about what can I do for
Give
people?
more than what
Like,
you get. Absolutely.
yeah, because it comes back around to you in other ways. Like you don't even have to think about it that way, but it does.
It does.
you know? And especially I remember at the beginning of the pandemic when we first started like the showcase series that we're still continuing to do um, every other month now. Um, I just wanted to like get like share people's music so that there was another way for it to get out into the world because nobody was able to do shows anymore. And I sort of feel like we have this power in this unity of helping lift everybody up to more visibility,
1,000%. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And just with community too, I think it's also really important to surround yourself, with the community and whatever your inner circle is with, people who are going to be really, really honest, with you, and people who will tell you no or tell you, be like, maybe don't do
That is so
that was a
tricky,
bad,
I gotta tell
yeah, don't wear that,
you.
but because it is, yeah, I think sure, it's easy to be like, oh, I just surround myself with people who just say glorious things to me, but that's not really going to move, you forward or really anyone forward. So just, yeah, surrounding yourself with people who are really honest and will tell you no.
Yeah. Or yes, I can tell you yes too.
Both, but won't be afraid to tell you no. Let me rephrase
I
that.
think,
Who are not afraid to tell you no.
Coming out of the pandemic, like a lot of people have understood like boundaries, and in a variety of industries, if you don't feel right with a certain relationship or a certain opportunity, it's okay to say no. I don't know if anybody else has felt that like the last couple of years, but my life has opened up like crazy ever since I've kind of adopted that philosophy. My life has changed, honestly, and so have my opportunities, my finances, everything. Just knowing the power of no or yes or both.
Well, you've learned to put yourself first and you learned to put boundaries.
So great.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good thought. I want to talk a bit about social media because I mean it's so ingrained in our world and who we are as people, as musicians, as brands. Do you guys have any thoughts of like, if I was a musician, say, releasing music and I wanted to get visibility and build a following and build something, create momentum, like how do you decide, where to go, what to do, what not to do. I feel like I'm feeling the TikTok pressure, but I'm like way too old to be making TikTok videos. Like, I think that's a big question mark for a lot of people. And I'm gonna ask Katie, even though it's not necessarily like 100% your space, but I'm sure you have some thoughts on it.
I mean, my biggest thing though is, and it kind of goes with Sarah and your boundaries and the saying no, though, is just don't give it away for free. Do not
Mm,
give it away for free. There's so many temptations with social media and opportunities with media platforms, even the network I work with. Like, there's so often we're like, hey, and then like, can you like let us play that video? And you're like, no, like the answer should be no, or ask like what type of budget do you have? And so don't give everything away for free, even if it's on your own social media. Make sure there's a purpose behind why you're posting it. Um,
mhm, mhm.
Otherwise, they
I
won't
love that
if you give
advice.
them milk away, they
Yeah.
won't buy the cow, my mom said.
Well, because I always think too, like, I mean, we think about this a lot, like about lead gen. Like if you can give a taste of something away, then maybe they'll sign up or pass like your sign up wall so that they can hear the whole thing or participate in something bigger, and then you have their contact information so that you can remarket to them later. I think that there's sometimes we just don't think about those things, you know.
I think a lot of new artists don't always think about like, what are you trading your time for? Because the time is the one thing you can't buy. So are you trading it for experience, an opportunity, something that's going to bring you more money, or are you just going to ask for money? Like, what are you giving? Because now that I have worked with bigger budgets in my agency myself, we've worked with bigger budgets. I know now what influencers get paid. I used to work with major brands with way more followers than some of the influencers we work with, and they were getting paid within the 5-figure budgets, and my sister and I made nothing. I'm like, why didn't we get paid that? We have more followers and engagement than they do. A lot of it's just knowing what you're worth and knowing to say no, this is what I charge, this is what I want. Pay me or don't work with me. Or work with the opportunity, and what is it going to give you? Maybe it'll give you a resume builder and you can book 3, 5, 6 more things with it. Sometimes it's more of a strategy, and I do advocate, like Nicole said earlier, like working with people around you that you can trust, that are going to advocate for you, that can get you there. Especially in social media now, it's so competitive. Coming out of the pandemic, there's a lot of people making noise. Your brand's going to be the one thing that's going to push you forward amongst all the other noise, the quality of content, and yeah, the authenticity. And then also, like we said, the community. Your community is going to make, if you have a strong community with a smaller fan base, you're going to make more money than somebody with a million fake followers that don't really, do much on a daily basis. So a lot of it is kind of those like, yeah, little strategy things for
Yeah.
sure.
To keep in mind too that it all, like with quality content, like it matters if you have 5 followers or if you have 5 million. And I think that, especially like developing artists and up and coming artists, like there's this kind of, this rush and this urgency to just get something up. And, one of the things that we always say here is like, you have a friend who just like talks and talks and talks and talks and talks about like, nothing. And so people just tune them out and they don't pay attention. You want to be the friend that might be quiet, but when you do say something, like everybody pays attention because it's super quality. And I think just putting the time in, like even at 0 followers, to have like that, quality and authenticity. And it also just gets you in the habit of that kind of behavior and, really making it count. Cause this is, like you said, your brand, it's public, and it's just really important to think about it no matter how big or small you are. And, that's something we talk about here. It's like, everybody going to get treated like a Beyonce, like whether you have 0 followers or like Beyonce level followers, like the quality and, is all going to be the same, and everybody will be kind of treated, the same. It's really, important to think about that at an early stage.
I always also think that quality sort of rises to the top. Like, as a music writer for Parade, I get pitched hundreds of emails a day, literally. So I can't possibly listen to everything that gets sent to me, but on occasion there will be something from somebody that I've never heard of that just kind of blows my mind. Then I'm just like, okay, I've never heard of this person. They don't have a huge following, but this is so good that I have to share it. Like, and that's really fun for me too, to be able to share something that's from somebody who's starting out that is super talented. Um, So yeah, quality, very important. Um, Nicole, I think you mentioned earlier about like, I think it was you, talking about like types of content because I think that, you know, let's just say we're talking about musicians, you write a song, you want to release a song. To me, like there's so many other pieces of content around that that can be interesting and get as much visibility as the song itself, sometimes more visibility. Like, do you have any thoughts or advice about that idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to like be up on the trends, like, and to know about like your TikTok and know kind of what works. But I think again, most importantly, to be authentic. Like, if you're not somebody who's gonna post, photos like selfies of themselves, or you're not comfortable doing that, like that's not gonna resonate then with people. So like whether it is just like images, or like let's say you are really into video, but it's not going to be video of you. It's going to be video of like landscape, or video of like, moving colors that, represent the song. I think it's, important too for artists to think about their work like that, though, to think about the visual aspects, and to think about like, how was I feeling like when I wrote this, how was I feeling when I wrote the song? Like what kind of like colors or what kind of things did I see, to really think about things, 360. And, the music is the absolute most important part. But then kind of when it gets to this like release, process, having a really clear vision for how you like who you are and how you want to be presented. And again, that go back to like, how do you want people to feel? And that's going to be different for a pop artist than it is for like a death metal band. Maybe not, but I mean, there's types of content that definitely perform better, that we know do better. But like I said, it's important to pay attention to trends, but it's really important to do things that speak to you, that make you comfortable. Like if you're not comfortable doing lives, or you're not comfortable posting selfies, like that's going to come through if you do that. So
Yeah.
I hope that answers the question.
Katie, what do you like if somebody pitches you, like what makes you want to like take another look?
Like especially there's so many different things that get pitched at me. One of the shows that I do, it's called Music High Five, and it's a weekly music recap show. It's on Fridays. It's 5 minutes. It's really fast. And I love when people pitch me. There's a lot of music videos get pitched to me, and so and there are a lot of big name ones too, where it is like, and here's the latest from like Justin Bieber, but that doesn't excite me. I really, really do look for an indie artist and a really interesting visual story, because I think that plays really well in the show and online. I like, when you're cold calling someone or cold emailing, if you will. I'm a sucker for a good subject line. I really am a sucker for just a really friendly opening, sentence that makes me think that we are friends. Even if it's someone's first time, where I'm like, oh, wait, did I know that? Wait, who are they again?
Yeah.
They got me. They don't want to know what I'm doing this weekend. But, so I like when people approach me in a familiar way and not a business way, obviously. So that stands out to me, good visuals, good communication up front. That's just creative and just seems very natural and friendly and warm. Warmth reads these days.
I think too, like, people should know like what kind of shows you do or what kind of people you cover, or I
Sure.
totally agree with you about the subject line. It is so
Yeah.
crucial. I think I got one time that said like test on it from somebody, like they made a mistake. Like, and then
Did you
like,
open it though immediately? Were you
I mean,
curious and opened
it
it?
said like test bracket, and then it said something else, and I
Okay.
was like, "Oh, what is this?" Yeah, I opened it
Yeah,
because I was
right?
like, "What? Why?" I mean,
Yeah.
and if it was a clever, use of that, then good for them. But yeah, I think that's interesting. I want to take a minute to think about like what mistakes do you see people making? What do you see happening in your own space with people who are trying to maybe, move forward with visibility, with their career, with, you know, um, getting what they're doing out into the world. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Sarah, I know. I can tell you're dying to tell me what you see happening.
I was trying to not look like I wanted to talk.
Don't
I don't even know
tell
how to
me. Don't tell
answer. I mean, I'm probably a bad one to answer because I think we kind of did the opposite, where we really, both in my marketing and career and also in my music career, we really paid our dues. Like, we did a lot before we started saying that we did a lot. So our kind of portfolio or resume speaks for itself. And I think sometimes you see some people over speaking for themselves, but they don't really have the names or the label or the manager or even the shows to back it up. And sometimes it goes the other way around. I mean, there's some artists that literally break out at 13 years old and have no experience and are internet sensations. So I'm completely wrong in those cases. But I think sometimes just like trying, like writing with people, like, don't have too much of an ego, get your experience playing shows. We did a lot of stuff for years that some people would be like, oh, why'd you do that? That, they weren't paying you money or like this or that. But at the time, it got us where we are now. And same with my marketing. I mean, I took gigs here or there that, got me experience. And that's why I'm bringing in the revenue I am now, is because I was able to build up that portfolio. So I think whatever industry you're in, a portfolio will always bring you more. So I'd say that's probably it. Maybe expecting that, or they say, you get signed to a label and then the work stops. But I don't know. We signed our Republic Records in New York and Universal Canada in 2019, 18, just before COVID hit. And yeah, no, it's hard work. Like, the work would never stop. So it's just making sure you have the goods to back it up. And a lot of the goods are before you get signed. Those connections you bring to the label are what you're going to be using once you get to the label. Those are going to be your advocates once you get to the label. So really, like, cherishing that time as an indie artist and building up those advocates is going to be huge. Once you
Yeah,
get
I think it's a lot of hustle, right? It's a lot of legwork.
Yeah, because a lot of our contacts now that we use every day are people that we met before we got signed, which is interesting. So I think that's always important to talk to indie artists. It's like, use that indie time. You can be indie the rest of your life if you want to, but if your goal is to be signed to the biggest label in the world, I mean, Republic is notably a bigger label. If you want to be signed to Republic, I mean, use that time as an indie to like garner as many contacts as possible that believe in you. I think that's important. Yeah, and then I'll stop talking.
No, that's awesome. Myki, do you have any thoughts on where you see people?
I was
gonna in the road.
Yes, I was gonna say, backing on what Sarah said, is speaking without having it. Let your work speak for you, and don't burn bridges. I mean, I think it's harder now for the generations now than it was when, you and I, Laura, were younger, because everyone sees everything and cancel culture is real. So, like back, if I had a bad reputation in the 80s, 5 people might have known about it. One wrong tweet, one wrong, you're at a party and someone took a video.
Think before you tweet. That's for sure.
You know what it is? Here's a sentence I was taught by a mentor and I live by. Know your audience. When you walk into a room, you go to do an interview, you're even at a party with friends, know who's around before you speak or do anything. I think one of the things is, like with social media, have professional pages, have personal pages, and try not to intersect both, if at all, because I mean, I used Kanye earlier because notably one of the most brilliant, he's a good artist, but he can't keep his trap shut. And so what's happening? Media companies are eating it up because it's the clickbait. It's getting them the algorithms, right? It's about the algorithm, what comes forward. And now, if you don't know that he's great, or you might get tired. I mean, I X out now every article that I see coming down my feed. I don't want to see him. And that's sad for him, because he has got a lot to offer as an artist. That's not what I'm seeing right now. So know your audience. If you're having a bad day, don't have it on the internet. That's worse than drunk texting. Like they say, don't drunk text your ex. Don't do it on the internet. Don't do the passive aggressive. Oh my God, don't do those.
There's a bad kind of visibility, and that's not what you want.
Yes, don't. Don't know your audience. That's what I would say.
Yeah, thank you. Nicole, what do you got? What are you saying? You probably see
I-
tons of people making tons of mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, no, but really to echo what, I think what everybody else has brilliantly said. I think burning bridges is, really important. And, everybody, everybody, like at the end of the day, which really wants to work with their friends or people who are cool, right? It's like that. I think that getting away with bad behavior is a thing, obviously, that we've seen, especially in the past couple of years, is a thing of the past. Like, you have to be great to work with. And I know Sarah was saying, like, being at a major label. I mean, like, when I was in the label world, it's like I worked harder for the people I really liked and who were cool and came to hang out and and spent like time with us, and they got more attention. And the people who were not either not as nice or had bad attitudes didn't get as much attention. And I think that's really important, is to like just always kind of keep in mind that there's like other people and the same thing goes with tweets too. Like, there are other people or other human beings on the other side of that. Like, even though it might just be a black box, like there's people on the other side of that. And I think that's always something to keep in mind, that with our hyper digital age, that there's human beings on the other side of all of that, whether you're trying to cultivate a community, whether that's how you're communicating with people. But I think that's really really important. And also, just the art is the most important thing. Like the songs, the music, there's a lot of other ways to get famous, which is great. But if you want to have a long career as a musician, like the art and putting the work in to get really good is the most important, and to get really good, and also to never stop learning and never stop being curious. Because I think all the best artists in the world, whether they're actors, actors, painters, musicians, like they never stop learning and being curious and consuming. And I think that's really important, because once you do, that's kind of you're dead once you stop being curious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think your point about not being difficult, I think that should be a philosophy of everybody in everything that they do. What is that saying
Any
about
industry?
yeah, like get more flies with honey than with
Well, it's kind of like the old thing you saying of oh, well, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, but you're like, but the crazy psychotic wheel gets thrown in the trash.
Gets thrown in the trash, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
also, it's so funny, like I remember being a publicist, and the people who nudged me all the time made me not want to do as much for them. I'm like, oh, it's them again. Like,
The game of how to properly follow up and how many days, and like the hey, just checking in, like the nudge, like it is a tango.
And I don't think it's, I mean, I wish you had that answer. I'd love to know that answer, because I've been doing this for a really long time, and I think it always changes, and it's not perfect.
There is no answer.
So neither one of that. Yeah, that's the golden ticket. What's the perfect answer? But I also think too, it's like just being cool and also being respectful. Like there is a podcast producer today that I was talking to. I'm not going to say his name, but he's really lovely. We do a lot together. But there's something I pitched him, and he's like, I will absolutely do this if you really want me to, but I'm like really not super into it. And I'm like, no, like I'm not going to make you do something. You're like, I'm not going to have you do something as like a favor to me. Like I really appreciate that, but like you're not connected to this. So like let's that's just move on. And as publicists, we're paid to get looks and things, so turning like something like that could be difficult. But this is also somebody I've had a long relationship with, and I want to continue to have a long relationship with. So like great that you want to do me a favor, but clearly you're really not into this, so let's just pass.
And then you move on and you find someone else who is, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
Katie, do you have any final thoughts about mistakes or things you see people out there in the world?
I think if you make a mistake, make sure you apologize. If you've ticked someone off, make sure you kind of come back, with the sorry about that. I think asking when you're working with someone how you can help them to help you is really key. I've found, again, going back to the conversation of Sarah saying, learning to say no, I've learned to tell people, hey, I can't do this now, but can you follow up with me next Wednesday? Because it's like, I can't put it all on my calendar. I can't put up on my calendar that I'm supposed to follow up with these people. And like, I'm actually helping them by putting them on the air and doing these things. So you know what? Can you follow up with me? So helping myself by helping others, by telling them what I need. And then vice versa, when I'm asking someone, hey, Nicole, I want to book so-and-so on the show. When can I get that Zoom interview? When can I do it? I think, after, a good 2 or 3 follow-ups, if you're getting the radio silence, I don't believe in giving up, but I think also just hey, don't want to bug you. Let me know if this is just an idea that I'm just beating into the ground, or if you're just overwhelmed, and I will take my lead from there. And so I give people permission to say, I'm not interested, because that's the hardest thing, right? With even in relationships, right? It's easier just to be like, are you just not into it? Great. I said it for you.
Yeah, just tell me.
So letting other people
Oh,
off the hook makes saves you time and them time.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I mean, I feel like, as a journalist myself, we're so inundated now with pitches and material. And I try to tell people when I'm in panels like this, like, don't take it personally. Like, there, I'm in this group where there's this huge Facebook group of publicists and journalists together. It's called like PR czars, right? And you see people saying, I wish these journalists would just tell me yes or no. And I'm like, I physically could not tell you yet 400 people a day, yes or no. I just can't physically do it. It's not possible. So,
Yeah, there's way more of them than there are of us.
yeah, it's just, but don't take it personally. And like,
Kind of goes back to that community aspect, is having those people in your community,
Yeah, exactly. And right. And it's like, it's like anything, like building, nurturing relationships, like having it be a give and take. Like, I love when somebody presents me like all the materials I need to write my story all in one place. I don't have to search for links. I don't have to, it's like, okay, they know what I need. They make it easy for me. And I can spend, half an hour less because I don't have to dig.
That's good advice. An amazing one sheet that has everything.
Yeah.
I am such a stickler for that. Like, even like, it's so even like the little minutiae. So one of my like pet peeves, I'm like, so the photos that we send always have the photographer credit like in the file name, and it drives me nuts when they don't. So like these little things that seem so tedious, it's just going to make someone's job like easier. And even though I know it's tedious, like those teeny little things drive me nuts when we don't do it. I'm like, oh, I can't send this photo out. It doesn't have the photographer credit in the file name.
Yeah, because the more organized you are when you're trying to reach out to somebody and get them to do something for you, the easier it is for them to do it. Right. But it's amazing how many people are not like that. And people who work with like big name people too.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this person, like they're really big, but oh my gosh, they're such a pain in the butt.
Absolute facts. Absolute facts.
But that's also empathy too, it's like if someone like me, I need to go into like Myki's chair, I need to go into Laura's chair and Katie's chair and be like, how to, on the receiving end of that, like how would I, just take a split second to think about like how would I want to receive this if I were on the other end of that? Because I can't even imagine. I mean, the inundation.
It's hard. It's hard. I think it's harder too. Like I think the media industry has been like depleted of. Maybe it's getting a little better now. I don't know. The world's all different now, but for a long time, people getting fired from editor jobs and writer jobs, and they're using a lot of freelancers, and
freelancer world is crazy.
Yeah, and it's you got to do more. Like you got to
even
do
bad
more
as a
with less.
Like I'm technically a freelancer agency, and I have people coming to me every day bombarding me with like, I want jobs, can I work? And I'm like, but what are you like? They have no experience. I'm like, have you ever done this before? And I think sometimes I think about that with musicians, like when you're applying for something or when you're sending in your work for a certain thing, what are you giving them? Are you giving them something in return, kind of that like mutual, like not just like, can I have something? No, it's like, well, how am I going to promote you? Or how am I going to help the show? Or how am I going to like go the extra way to help promote the show? Or, in that transactional email agreement,
I think that
how are you going to give back?
Yeah, that's very valid because let me tell you, we notice, right? Like if you do a show with somebody and then they share it and then you get a lot of views from it because they're visible, make it visible.
1,000%. I know who are the people that share with their clients and make sure that they post and repost and tweet and retweet and, burn me once. All right. Let's see again. Burn me twice. I'm just like, you know what? Like you're like, you're not managing your clients then, whether it's the
Yeah.
individual person or the person who that's managing them. I'm like, someone needs to do this. If you're begging me to promote, like, you need to then promote in return. And it's hard though, because I know when some people, like, they're on a giant tour, right? Like Scorpions new album, like they can't necessarily retweet everything, but like, can't they? Can't they?
They should have an
It's just a
intern or
retweet.
somebody
Like,
to
it may not
Yeah, they
be-
have
There's gotta be an
interns.
intern
Come on.
somewhere.
yeah, it's just like, you gotta do
Absolutely,
it.
they can. They have people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna
everybody's
say,
on their phone in bed.
Yep,
They could
all the-
retweet then,
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean, I've actually pulled things before because I knew that the artist wouldn't share it. And I was like, I'm sorry. I understand that's an important part of this, but they're probably not going to do it. So let's just pull the plug.
Yeah,
Pull the
let's
plug.
not go there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is really important because you're right, Sarah. It's like a two-way street, right? Like, yeah.
It's always something
Well,
I've noticed more recently is like now working on the other side of things. It's like, okay, if you're gonna give this person this amount of views, this followers, they're not bringing you revenue, they're not bringing you in money per se. What's the transactional? And a lot of it is promotion. So how, as an
Mhm.
artist, can you tell a bigger outlet if you're going on Billboard? Well, how can I promote it? How can I give value to Billboard? Obviously, a fresh artist, that's a cool thing too. If you have hype, but like, how can you like give
Yeah.
that transactional?
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. This has been a really great conversation. You guys are all so great. I appreciate you taking the time. I just want to share with everybody before we go. Next month, March 17th, we'll have our next She Rocks showcase right here, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be sharing live music, some little chatter. You'll get to hear some really great, female artists playing live. Also, please mark your calendar June 2nd for the 10th annual She Rocks Awards. Yes, we will be doing it in person this year and having a big live stream presence as well. So June 2nd, everybody's going to get a chance to see it. It'll be awesome. And finally, I just want to thank MAC Cosmetics. Awesome, very supportive. The face, very good. And yeah, I see Bonnie sent me a message. Am I allowed to tell people that yet? I don't think so. Secret information coming soon about the She Rocks Awards. But anyway, thanks, guys. Thanks so much. You can find out more about us at thewimn.com, THEWIMN.com. And yeah, get out there. Get your visibility going.
We're watching.
We're watching. All right.
Bye, ladies.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Have
Take
a
care.
good night.